I take pride in not letting people know about
and now you just let
I just let
our
everyone.
entire
Everybody.
millions of fans know.
They'll forget.
Billions of fans.
You'll forget, won't you?
But they
everyone?
won't forgive.
Forgive. I'm pretty sure everyone. If you don't like DBZ, that's like something's wrong.
Welcome and thank you for listening to Successfully Unsigned. Today we have two main topics for you. The first is all about mixing, and the second is an album review of Khalid's American Teen. So what is mixing a song? How do you mix? How do you prepare your files and your songs to be mixed by somebody else? Organization of files, compatibility. What does the entire production process look like? How do you use reference tracks? Listening in different places if you're mixing yourself. And some of the differences between a producer and an engineer, tracking versus mixing versus mastering, all the fun nitty-gritty that's a little bit on the unclear side for most people. We try to help clear that up. And like I mentioned, we also talk about Khalid's American Teen album. And even though it's a few years old now, we felt like the simplicity and the honesty of the approach of songwriting and the production is a great case study in how something like that can add to the success of your album. If you enjoy this episode, please hit that like and subscribe. Follow us on Instagram at successfully_unsigned, on TikTok at Unsigned Podcast, and rate us on your favorite streaming platform. You can also join us for an exclusive monthly newsletter on our website at su-podcast.com. Thanks and enjoy this episode.
What is up? We're back, and in a new.
It must be a boom clap sound.
You're singing that to the intro music. I wonder if it fits.
I highly doubt it.
Charlie XCX.
This is Patrick we're talking
Sponsor
about.
us.
Yeah, sure. Welcome in, everyone. We're back in a new location, and we're still decorating it a little bit, but we're here, and we're so happy to be here and talking about our topic tonight, which is
Mix it all together, and you know
what you
that
got?
it's the best of both worlds.
You know what's so
Someone
hilarious?
What?
Hilarious? Steph the other day was telling me like the transitions. Hannah Montana, like her and her friend at work do the transitions when something bad or good happens, and I was like, these transitions, I don't remember them, and so yeah, they're literally like it's like weird runs.
We should start doing that.
We should. I should record it and put it on the board.
Oh my gosh, please do. Please do. Every time we go, okay guys, we're going to take a break and then just barely.
Yeah,
I have
it's
no
done.
idea what's going on right now.
That's perfect. We'll show you an episode in Hannah Montana.
Perfect. But yes, tonight we were talking about the mixing stage of the creative process, and as an artist, what do you need to know when you're submitting your tracks for mixing to a mix engineer, or if you're doing it yourself, or if you know somebody that can do it for you? What do you need to know? What are the do's? What are the don'ts? And here to help us with that is a mix engineer himself, Mr. Dale Shack, everybody.
Hopefully that's the right one.
There we go. But Dale, I guess before that, we got to do show and yell.
Show and yell.
I'm so sorry, guys. That's the most important segment. I forgot it. So we're gonna do show and yell. I guess I'll go first. Since
Go, Davey.
I'm closest to my. Please no. London's not listening. All right. So rest in peace, Akira Toriyama. Dragon Ball Z was my favorite show.
Where's the yell, bro?
Weave.
Where's the yell?
What does that mean? What
You
does
gotta
weave?
yell.
DBZ movie pack. Boom.
That
You need to
was
move that closer.
so
I know.
anticlimactic.
I know. Well, I wasn't finished explaining it yet, but it's a movie pack. It's Return of Cooler, Super Android 13, and Broly, the Legendary Super Saiyan, and BoJack Unbound. Smells like my mom on Christmas. Show us what you got. But all great movies. But really loved Dragon Ball Z growing up, and the creator of Dragon Ball Z just passed away recently. Akira
I actually
Toriyama.
didn't know that.
Yep.
That's
Yeah,
sad.
and so it was just an iconic month of just DBZ, and so I thought I would share some of my collection. I have every season of DBZ on
Really?
DVD. Yeah, every season.
I did not know you were that much of a Dragon Ball Z fan.
I love Dragon Ball Z.
What are your thoughts on Dragon Ball Evolution, the movie?
Evolution?
You talking about the live action?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, that Don't get me started. I'm not. I've never. DBZ is one of those. I don't want a live action. Just leave it alone, right? Like, please don't. Like you see all this other stuff they're trying to do. Like GT was a mess. Like cleaning up the mess from Dragon Ball GT was horrible, and they made Super, and thankfully Super is good. But
did you ever play the video games?
Yeah, Tenkaichi. I was all over Tenkaichi, Budokai. Yep.
Me and my cousins would play them at my grandma's house. Actually,
yeah. Xenoverse.
It's so much fun.
Xenoverse is fun. They just released one, DBZ Kakarot, which I've watched some gameplay I really want to get, but you need a PS5.
Oh my goodness, he's like a big fan. I did not realize.
Didn't know this about you either.
I don't like broadcast, dude, but I have, it's bad. I have every season.
Nice. That's crazy.
The remastered ones and the regular soundtrack, because the soundtrack makes a difference. Don't forget that. A soundtrack.
It's true.
In an anime, a soundtrack makes
everything.
It's everything.
I will say a lot of, I'm not a huge like anime fan, like just as a genre, it's not for me, but some of the music and soundtracks that come out of that genre are amazing.
Yeah. Like in this Broly, this is the one with the regular music in it, but in the movies, they'll do like kind of a rock, sort of like a deep, like a Nirvana type sound in some of the movies. And it gives it like this grungy feel to it. And it just gives it that much more of like, like just more intense. So Broly is one of those, because they actually released another Broly movie here in the past couple of years that was really good too. And the graphics are better and the fighting's better. It's just
nice.
Great. But
okay, so a weeb, to define it for you. Actually, I don't really know exactly how to define it, but basically it's just like a term that people use toward people who are like super into anime, like, and it's like supposed to be offensive.
Think anime nerd.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like that would apply to me technically in this case, but I take pride in not letting people know about
and now you just let
everybody,
millions of fans know.
They'll forget.
Billions of fans.
You'll forget, won't you?
But they won't forgive.
Forgive. I'm pretty sure everyone, if you don't like DBZ, that's like something's wrong.
I feel like if everyone truly gave it a shot, they could get into at least one anime.
Yeah. Anime, it tells a story just like everything else. Yeah. It's just cartoons.
Do you like other animes?
Are great.
Yeah, I mean, I watched a little bit of Naruto. I watched a little bit of Sailor Moon, like when I was growing up.
Sailor Moon?
Sailor Moon. Yeah. Sorry, Sailor Moon. Sailor Moon. I
love like the aesthetic. And like even like Studio Ghibli movies, I'm not huge into them, but like the aesthetic, I literally almost wore a Ponyo shirt today because I love the aesthetic. But like the stories themselves, and I love the music. But the stories themselves, I'm like,
that genre was just so like in that time, like it was like early 2000s.
I love watching
90s.
Like anime edits.
Oh yeah, and it's just so it gives you this. It's a feeling really of like watching cartoons on a Saturday, like just. I don't know, just something about it.
Like,
it's relaxing.
Pair like an Ariana Grande song over like sparkly Sailor Moon clips.
Yes.
I'm all into
it. There you go.
You know, fun fact, I made my record for the number of cookies eaten while half watching a Studio Ghibli film.
You want to guess how many cookies this man ate in a sitting?
Butter cookies.
Less than 2 hours.
Wasn't it?
Okay, so hold on. So let's my family was watching is it my friend or
Castle?
No, is my friend Totoro or my neighbor Totoro? Is it friend or neighbor?
Neighbor.
Yeah, my neighbor Totoro. They were watching that movie. I was playing the games, Christmas time, and I wasn't really watching, but kind of half watching. They only got through like 45 minutes of this, and then we were like, okay, we're going to bed, kind of thing. 45 minutes.
So less than an hour.
Less than an hour. How many cookies? Butter cookies. Keep in mind they're about a big, thick butter. They're all butter and sugar.
Yeah.
How many?
I don't know, like 50?
No.
Lower?
More.
70?
More.
No, you're a liar.
More. 86.
86? Did you throw up?
No. They cut me off.
Yeah.
I was averaging, what, is that 2 a minute?
That's
almost 2 a minute.
Disgusting.
Oh
I'm just sitting there playing the game, just chowing down on them. Right. So my sister had made like 200 for like a class party. And somebody else brought like the exact same container as hers, but had something else in it. So theirs got set over top of hers. They were thinking it was the same stuff. So none of the 200 that she took to the class party got eaten. So she brought all of them home. And my family were sitting there after eating supper. Like we all ate together, right? So it's Christmas time. We all ate together. We go in there, we sit down, and they start watching the movie, and I start eating cookies. And so we knew how many we started with because nobody had any. My dad was the only other one to eat any. And he's like, I know how many I had. He's like, I had like 12. And he's like, how many do you have? I'm like, well, I don't know. So they sat down and they counted how many we had left. And we knew how many we started with because nobody had any. 86. And
So
I would have kept going, except they were like, hey, how many of you had?
You would have exploded.
Oh, dude, I
Definition
felt
of
great.
gluttony.
I felt great.
You're like made up of butter cookies.
I felt
Like,
great.
It's part of it.
I love it.
They're still digesting.
I'm proud of it.
When was this? How old were you?
I was still in high school. No. Yeah. I'd have been like a
so
freshman.
At this point, he was
I'd
like,
been like a freshman.
paper thin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd maybe weighed 110 pounds, 115
Yeah.
pounds,
Okay.
something like that. So yeah, I probably was like 80% butter cookie at this point. Other 20% Dr. Pepper.
We need to make a shirt for you that just says 80% butter cookie.
Yeah.
If you guys want to see that, let us know. We'll make one. And you'll buy it.
Send us merch
Send
ideas.
us-
Oh my goodness, we need
Yeah.
some.
We need, if you have ideas for the wall, let us know, like to put in these little spaces.
Or if you have a knickknack that you think deserves to be in the background,
Knick-knack, paddywhack.
Knick-knack, paddywhack.
give a dog a bone. If you have something that you think deserves to be in the back of Successfully Unsigned, send it our way. We'll be happy to put some stuff up.
Okay,
I
butter
say that
cookie.
as this isn't even my house, but
it's everyone's.
yeah,
I can't.
go Patrick.
Okay. Are you ready? Pokedex!
Oh, that's what that is.
Okay, so this is a Pokedex from the early 2000s. Actually, it might say 2007. And it does still work. I wish I could show you guys the screen.
That sounds like the what can we do with the Junkin Sailor kind of theme, like the start of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
So
so
basically it has, I don't know if it only has 151 or if it has, I think this is a second gen because there was another Pokedex that was, that came out before this, I think like in the 90s, and it was like a little more like the show. I think this one is from like Emerald, Sapphire, all that. So this one might have, so I guess that'd be third gen.
That's third
so
gen,
this
yeah.
one, this one might have third gen Pokemon on it too, but it might also just have 151. I don't remember. I went through all of them at one point when I was a kid, but me and my cousin used to trade things all the time, like trade different toys. And I traded this for, or I think I honestly traded like some pink bouncy ball that I had for this. My cousin,
you won out.
shout out to Anthony. I love you, but
Need to get you on Shark Tank.
homeboy was not the best at trading. Like he got some like 15-year-old scammed him because he gave him a Rubik's 360. He gave my cousin a Rubik's 360. In exchange, it hurts to say, for a Nintendo 64 with all of his games.
Oh,
And I'm like, whoever did that,
Should be
go to jail.
Summarily.
Straight to jail.
Wow.
You're 15 and you're doing that to like an 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 10-year-old. I don't know how old he was. He
Wow.
was still too old to fall for it. But at the same time, it's like, dude,
No,
really?
I get it. Some people are like, when I was growing up, I used to trade like Yu-Gi-Oh cards, or I had a ton of Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
Yu-Gi-Oh has been coming up so much lately in my life.
we were
I
talking about
love
this just the other
Yu-Gi-Oh.
day.
Yeah, I had like the dual disc and everything.
Nice.
What?
I had the dual disc, but I would like hurt myself with it all the time because it would snap. and I
I'm
didn't
so
want to.
jealous. I wanted one so bad.
They were dope. But this guy, he like was obsessed with the Pot of Greed card.
Yeah.
And he would not leave me alone for it. He's like, dude, I'll trade you like a Zodiac arm for a Pot of Greed. I'm like, dude, I don't want to trade you. And he would not leave me alone. Every time I would come to the softball park, my dad used to do stuff there and I'd go with him. He would come up to me and be like, dude, so like, can you trade me your Pot of Greed card? It's like a spell card. And I'm like, dude, no,
Yeah.
I'm not going to trade you that. But this dude was so persistent. And there were several guys like that who just would not take no for an answer when it came to trading cards.
There's been that's been like a recent insult on TikTok lately. Like people commenting like, you look like Pot of Greed.
Pot of Greed. Yeah. I mean,
No, me and my brother were obsessed with Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah.
Like, and my brother was good. Like, we used to go to Toys R Us for tournaments, and he would like, do really well. I don't know if he ever won or not, but he was just at one point, like, he would make different themed decks. Obviously, that's what you do. And like toward the end of my Yu-Gi-Oh era, he made me a Harpy and Ojama deck.
Yeah.
I was obsessed with those two like things, and he was like, if you know how to use this, you can do really well with it. I didn't know how to use it, but he made a samurai deck, and it was like unstoppable. I wish he was able to make that like back when the tournaments were still thing, because I bet he could have gone through. But we were obsessed with Yu-Gi-Oh. We saw the movie in theaters, like got all the cards. Yeah. We used to like go to our friend's house, and he like had a huge binder just full of all kinds of cards. Oh, well, I miss Yu-Gi-Oh.
Fun fact.
We need to play a Yu-Gi-Oh game on here.
Fun fact. I had a Yu-Gi-Oh binder with all my cards in it. And my, like, eventually I got to the point where I took them out and I had to put them into a new binder. And so I actually like wrote a little short story when I was growing up, like a little codename Kids Next Door, like sort of short story. And I put it
nostalgic episode
in this binder. My dad burned it. He like threw it away. He thought it was my Yu-Gi-Oh cards. And I was like too old for them. And he was like, I'm going to throw these out. So we threw
and he
them.
burned them?
Yeah, he threw them on the burn pile. And I was like, of course, he thought I didn't play with him anymore. So to his defense, but still, that was my short story. He burned all of it. But it was in my Yu-Gi-Oh binder though.
But also not to his defense, like, hey, you could also like get some money for that. I mean, Yu-Gi-Oh cards aren't like as sought after as like Pokemon cards.
Well, that's the thing.
Still.
He burned the wrong thing. Like my Yu-Gi-Oh cards weren't even in that binder.
Oh,
it was my short story that I had in my Yu-Gi-Oh binder.
Oh,
and he
I got
burned the short story. So I was like, I would have rather had that, but I just thought it was funny how like it was. He saw a Yu-Gi-Oh binder and his immediate knee jerk was like, "Let's burn this."
Wow,
and so I was like, yeah, but I was like really old. I mean, I was older, so I didn't like play with him too much. But
still, I mean, my
I was
brother.
like, hey, you want to run it by me before you throw my Yu-Gi-Oh binder?
The end of my Yu-Gi-Oh era was around the end of my brother's Yu-Gi-Oh era, and my brother's 8 years older than me, and I was probably like hitting preteens.
Yeah.
So you're never too old for Yu-Gi-Oh in my book, or Pokemon, or Dragon Ball Z, or Codename Kids Next Door. I love Codename Kids Next Door too. I want a rainbow monkey so bad. I used to want one so bad, and now they finally make them.
Which one was that?
Rainbow monkey, oh, so very soft. Number 3.
Number 3, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
she was obsessed with them. There was like a period of 2 weeks in 6th grade where I had the song just running on loop in my head. Like it would not leave. Dale, you want to show your item?
Yeah, let's go, Butter Cookie.
Oh, that's a cute little nickname.
Hey, Butter Cookie.
Oh no.
Wait.
Yeah, I can't super relate to like the Yu-Gi-Oh stuff or anything, but here's my item. My first vinyl album.
It's upside down.
It's upside down.
Note to self: move board closer next time.
This is the Mills Brothers. It is one of my favorite vinyl albums that I own.
Pretty good.
The first one, like I said, the first one that I ever purchased. I actually bought this before I had a record player.
I remember that.
Yeah, it was when I first moved out to Tennessee.
I was there when you bought that.
Yeah, it was at McKay's. At McKay's. And I was going around and man, there's one song on here that I just absolutely love. It's called "I Can't Stop Loving You." It's just a beautiful, beautiful song. And so I was like, oh wow, it's on this album. I got to get this album. And then, the song that I first found was "Till Then." That's the song I knew prior to this album. But it opens with "I Can't Stop Loving You," and I fell in love with that song after getting this album. So I don't know exactly when this album came out, but yeah, it's an older album, kind of R&B-ish for the day. A lot of it's very like acoustic kind of think. It's not really Motown, but it has some like old Motown flavors.
I just realized it's literally her sleeping on her bed with 4 different pictures of 4 different men.
Yeah,
get it, girl, get it.
all of them can sing, man. They're really, really good. But
she got everyone around her finger. I love that.
But it's such a good album. And for whatever reason, even though this thing is pretty old and they're not an active band or anything anymore, one of the songs, not till then, but I Can't Stop Loving You, has been pulled off Spotify. Like when I first found the album, it was there. And I was like, oh, great. I can listen to this anytime I want if I'm not at home and whatever. And so I would listen to it. And then I went back after a number of months and found that it had been grayed out after that on all my playlists. I was like,
I hate when that happens.
I was like, but why? This is an old song. Yeah. There's no reason for that to be taken off. I wouldn't think. Not after how many decades?
I don't know. Spotify, you never know.
It's a little strange. But amazing album. Some great songwriting. Some really great vocals. Super clean vocals and some great harmonies.
You always heard the ones you love got me through 2019.
It's a good song. It's a good song. Man, the whole album is like, it's just a great one to throw on like a vinyl, a vinyl player and just play it as you're cleaning or doing something or around the house or moving. So anyway, highly recommend this album. Old stuff, but good stuff. So
nice job, Dale. Nice job, Butter Cookie. And with that, we are going to take a small break, but we will be right back with tonight's topic. Churner. The churn.
Mixing.
Oh.
Mixing all together.
Thank you once again for listening to Successfully Unsigned. I would like to take a moment during this break to remind you to visit our website at su-podcast.com to view all of the newest and latest content that we put out. Also, do us a huge favor and hit like and subscribe on this YouTube video, and like and rate us on your favorite streaming platform. Each one of those things helps us out tremendously. We would love to hear your thoughts on what artists we should have on next, what content we should cover, what kind of topics we should discuss, and any tips and tricks you might have in the music industry. Thank you for being one of our favorite listeners, and enjoy the rest of the show.
Mix it all together.
Oh,
that's all
goodness.
I got. Yeah, the hand.
That's what it sounds
Hannah
like.
sounds
to me.
better than that.
Well,
we need to get you a blonde wig,
really.
and then it'll really click.
I mean, we could do that.
It's like they didn't even put auto-tune on it. It was just very like, it's just
So if
whiny.
you wanted to put auto tune on it, how would you go about that with mixing?
Oh boy. And that transition.
How did they mix Hannah Montana songs?
Well, a lot of work, that's for sure. But that was a good segue, I guess, into our topic tonight, which is mixing and the mixing process, like we had discussed earlier. Just what to expect as an artist when you're going through that process, because it can be very overwhelming. You've got all these tracks. You think it sounds good, but you're not sure, and you need a second opinion, and you want to take the track to the next level. So
Can I ask a very basic question that I still low-key don't really understand? When you start talking about all this stuff, I'm just like, I don't understand any of it. What's the difference between mixing and producing?
That's a great question.
That's a great question. Do you want to take it or you want me?
Go for it.
So producing is going to be you're interacting more with the artist, I feel like, and like kind of coaching them on things and giving pointers, but you're also kind of running the session as a producer.
Okay.
Mixing is going to be just the art of taking tracks and adjusting levels and like panning. So basically controlling like depth of a mix. So if something needs to come, if you want something to be perceived more towards you, you turn it up. And if you want something more left, you turn it left, right? So that's mixing. Like,
does mixing happen after then?
Yes.
So
think about mixing like a movie, right? A lot of people are a little more familiar with the kind of the time frame of what it takes to make a movie, even if you've never been through that process. Think of producing as the director, right? So they're not necessarily on screen, although sometimes they are. But they're telling people, hey, give me more of this emotion. Give me more of this emotion. They're not the one shooting the actual camera typically, but they might say, hey, that shot needs to be a little more from the side. I want a little more, of a dramatic look here, right? Or this, that, right? So they're not necessarily handling the physical things necessarily or doing the actual action, but they are directing and giving a creative input. Producers do the same thing. Right. So they're there to give the creative input like, hey, this is a really cool lyrical line, but I need more I need more emotion here. I need more sadness. I need more happy. I need more whatever, right? They're kind of coaching, as I think is the word that you used, out of an artist, something like that. Now, a producer is also responsible typically for how the end product of the mixing comes out, but they choose who mixes the song for what they want that song to sound like. Mixing is like editing a film, right? So you take all the shots from all the locations, right? You got a desert shot, and then you're in a city, and then you're then in the city, you're on the skyscraper. You got all these scenes, all these things, all these different angles, and you send it to the editor, and what do? Right? They ultimately decide what is in the very end. What do you see? A mix engineer does the same thing, but for your left-right stereo channels, or if you're in the modern world doing like Atmos and like stuff like that for like, Dolby and for Apple and all that, they're doing the same thing, right? But they're the ones that determine, how loud, how quiet, how far away, how up close, how left, how right, the different individual pieces are. Because you might have on a simple song 15, 20 tracks, right? Whereas there are songs that can be over 100 tracks, and the mix engineer has to go through all of those tracks and make those determinations, what makes it, what doesn't. Because sometimes when you get to that stage, especially if you're handing the mix off to somebody else to mix, right? Sometimes, and they're going to have a fresh perspective, and they might realize, this was recorded here, right? Maybe there's, a tambourine plays the entire song, right? Maybe the song doesn't need the tambourine through the entire thing. So they're also going to look at it from a bit of a creative point and say, hey, the second verse doesn't need this tambourine. They're going to cut it out of that second verse, right? Now, as a producer, the producer can come back and say, no, I want that, right? And so you have to strike a balance with who you're working with and how well do you know them. But
so
all
is the
that
mixer
to say,
in there while you're recording then?
No, the mixer is not typically in there while you record.
Okay.
No, that's a separate phase, which I think is maybe a good point to bring up, is maybe the different parts of production.
Yeah.
Because I think all of that does play into the mix, because the mix is at the very end or almost at the end and very dependent on what happens before.
Yeah.
So
there's tracking, there's mixing, there's mastering. So tracking is literally just, you go in the studio, someone's sitting there and they're pressing record and capturing all the audio.
Okay.
Then the next stage, they send all that audio to the mixer that makes sense of it, adjusts the levels, panning, all of that. And then after that, the mix is where they want it to be. Send it to the master, which is basically like compression and like making the track more equalized a little bit.
Yeah. So the mastering engineer, their job is to prepare it for release.
Okay.
The mix engineer makes it sound, hey, these are the balances of the instruments. I like the balance of the instruments. The mastering engineer, they look at it and they only get the left, right. They don't get all the instruments. They only get the final left, right from the mix. And they look at it and say, okay, compared to everything else that's out there that you can listen to right now, how does this kind of compare? Do we need to compress it to make the thing louder? Is it quieter than every other song on the radio? That's not going to be good for you.
Right.
Let's get it up to kind of a standard level, right? Or maybe every other song has way more bass and yours is just like got no bass. And so they'll shift that balance a little bit, right? They'll also add other like metadata stuff too, which can be important to getting paid.
Yeah.
So mastering engineers are worth it for that side of things if you're doing things. But yeah.
Cool. I think starting, we should probably go with like, because it's a very DIY world out there now as far as mixing. Like you could just mix something in your bedroom now. Yeah. You don't necessarily have to buy studio time or sorry, I got a little moment there. A little focus there. But you don't necessarily have to buy like studio time or anything like that. You can just kind of do it from your house now. So we'll start with, let's start with the people that have no idea how to mix or do any of that. Like walk them through like the process. Like they've recorded all their tracks with their friend in their room. And maybe it's just like a room like this.
Sure.
And so, what are some of the first steps when you send that audio or when they send that audio to you? What do you expect from them?
So like if they're sending it to me to mix, right?
Yes.
So the very first thing that you want to do if you're the artist sending tracks to someone to mix is you have to make sure that your stuff, all of your audio files are consolidated and that you're sending audio files, not a session necessarily, right? You can send a session, but if you send a session, you can't have virtual instruments on there. You have to print those. Those have to be an audio file. Because if you have, say, a fancy plugin, a fancy virtual instrument that you really like, there's no guarantee that the person that's mixing that's going to have that same plugin. You have to print that file as a wave form. Print it as a wave, and before you send it, make sure all of your tracks are printed as waves. Don't leave them as clips either. By consolidate, that's the term Pro Tools uses. I think other DAWs use other terms, but essentially you want to make sure that everything from the very beginning of the session to the very end of the session, all the tracks are the exact same length, right? That they all match up perfectly and they all begin at the same time. Because let's say you produce it in Logic, you have your tracks and there are different lengths and stuff like that, and you send it to the mix engineer and he's using Pro Tools. Well, he can't pull up the time code. That doesn't transfer over just waves, right?
Yeah, it's like compatibility.
It's compatibility.
Different.
Right? Because then if you have something that only plays in the third verse and you only printed the third verse and the entire rest of your session, oh, well, it's not there, so you don't have to worry about printing it. No, you do need to print it. Even if there's nothing there, print it to be the same length, because when so-and-so pulls it into Pro Tools or into whatever other DAW they're going to, doesn't matter what DAW, when they slide everything to the front, that piece that's only in the third verse is now going to be playing in the first verse. And that's going to sound mighty weird, and they're not going to know where else it's supposed to go, right? Because they didn't produce it. And that's not their problem. That's something that you have to fix before you send it, right? And if you make sure everything's nice and clean and label everything well, label the names of the audio files, something that makes sense. If it's a hi-hat, call it a hi-hat. If it's a bass drum, call it a bass drum, call it a kick, right? Make your naming conventions make sense.
Organize everything.
Otherwise, you're either going to burn a bridge of a mix engineer if you keep sending them stuff like that. Yep. Or they're going to increase their price because they're having to do a ton of extra work figuring out what in the world is this thing? I don't know what this is.
Right.
Like, and if you're sending, 100 tracks, that's a lot of work to figure out, oh man, I don't know what this is or this is. And they're all different time frames. They're going to kick it back to you and say, hey, rename this stuff. I'm not going through this. So
a little review there. Organize your tracks. Make sure every track is the same length, right? If you don't know what DAW is compatible with what plugin, ask somebody that you trust and has experience in the field. Make sure that if you have any sort of like cool synth or plugin or something that you're using, you're printing that and not just hoping that the mix engineer has that same plugin. And then did I hit everything?
Organize them, name your stuff, print it the same length. When you go to send it, make sure that they're WAV files and not some other form of weird, audio file. Don't print MP3s. That degrades the quality of what you're sending, and whoever's mixing it is going to be going to have limited options on what they can do with it, right? So make sure it's a WAV file.
Also, just kind of on a rudimentary level, like mix engineers aren't going to expect the track to be like crystal clear, pristine, but do everything in your power. Like understand that you're sending this audio to be put together for you and made into a piece. So before you send something off to a mix engineer, make sure the quality of what you're recording, like record in a quiet room, like just do your mix engineer a solid. Because there are things that you could be capturing on your microphone that cannot be taken out later because it's the way that it was recorded, and that's not on your mix engineer. That's just something about your room or wherever you're recording. So make sure you have a quiet space. Obviously, make sure that you have a decent microphone. There are plenty of cheap options for good microphones to capture audio. You can get like a cheap interface, all of these things go a long way in making you look and seem professional when you're sending your tracks to mix engineers.
Absolutely. And on that note, whatever you send to them, you need to have realistic expectations of what you're going to receive based off the quality of what you send. Because if you send a mix engineer something that sounds like one genre, actually this just happened. A friend of mine was just telling me about this the other day. They were like, hey, they were working with an artist and they were like, hey, I really think this thing sounds like Jacob Collier. I want this thing to sound like Jacob Collier, but they're working, but the stuff that they were doing was straight up like glam pop or something like that. Like just a completely different sound.
Yes.
Don't expect that if you record something one way, that the mix engineer can just change genres. You can't really do that.
Right.
You know, don't expect in the same token, if you record something on your iPhone or your phone as your vocal recording, don't expect it to come out sounding like, you know, Aretha Franklin. It's not. It's just not going to sound that way. You're not going to have an amazing vocal quality out of a terrible recording. You can't really, you know, polish a turd that much. There's things you can do, but there's things you can't do.
Gross.
So
Okay.
just have realistic expectations.
So what should I look, what's a good way to do research on finding a mixer?
Yeah.
And what's a good price, like, what are good different like price levels of like, okay, I am just starting out.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Maybe I have, you know, a few songs out. Okay. Now I'm like really ready to like pay some money.
That's a really good question. Actually, one that's really difficult to answer because unlike tracking engineers who have pretty standard rates, you can't, unless you're getting someone who's just like a very specific thing, tracking engineers pretty much all make around the same kind of thing. Mix engineers can make any kind of money from free to $5,000 a song or more, right? If you become a really good mix engineer, you can charge but it's pretty much as you want and people will come to you, right? Starting out, you know, find if you're on a super tight budget, you know, you can go try and find, you know,
Graduate students.
graduate students.
Graduate students.
find students.
Graduate students.
Find students who are looking for stuff for their portfolio and just trying to work on what they have and work on their skills and say, hey, I don't really have a budget. Can you help me with this? Right. Or, you know, you might even be able to get a production out of it. A lot of students look for productions at any kind of school that has trades, that, you know, any kind of audio trade program. If you're looking to pay someone, you know, it's not uncommon for like $500 a song. I've also seen, you know, $200 a song. You can go on Fiverr and probably pay $50 a song.
Yeah.
The quality of what you get out of that is going to be what you pay for.
Like,
But-
how do you research that, you think? Like,
How do you
just
research?
find, I guess, is there a way to be like, oh, this is this person, these are the
Oh.
songs this person has mixed?
Yeah, absolutely. The best way you can do that is look at liner notes. Look at liner notes or credit lists of songs you like, right? Especially if they're of local artists, right? Like go, you know, if you're going to shows and you're networking, like we talk about in a lot of our episodes, you're gonna get a feel for the people, the artists that you like and whose genres are similar to you, right? If I'm doing pop punk, maybe I find this one artist that I'm like, hey, we meet in a lot of kind of technical things. They put out some music. Cool. Let me ask them, hey, who mixed your songs? Do you like the mixes of their songs?
Yeah.
If you like the mixes of their songs, ask them who mixed your songs.
Yep.
And you might find, oh, well, this EP was mixed by this person, this single was mixed by this one, and our newest album is mixed by this guy or this girl or whoever. And then you start to have you might have three different options right there from talking to one band.
Yep.
And then you can go back and listen critically to the different like mixes because they're all going to have a different sound. Just like, you know, if you have a different drummer on your track, having a different mixer is going to completely change your sound too in regards to the presentation of it, right?
Yeah.
It's going to have a different tonality. So, you know, talk to the people that you're around. I mean, that's the biggest thing, you know?
Yeah, that's definitely network with artists you like. Ask who worked on their projects, graduate students. Those are all good methods. I kind of want to slide over to references from that.
Yeah.
That's a big thing for me that like when I sent my first track to be mixed, the person that was mixing my track was like, okay, what do you want it to sound like? And I'm like, good. And they're like, no, like give me some references. And I'm like, oh, like, and then it comes to you and you go, okay, yeah, I guess that's important to know that.
And we've talked about that before.
Yeah.
on
Yeah. Like, who do you want to sound
Miley
like? What do
episode,
you
I
want your?
It fits in so many different aspects though. Cause like you got to give your producer reference tracks so they know what they're recording, you know, or the engineer, whoever's recording it. You got to give your band, you know, the people who are the musicians, you got to give them reference tracks to know This is the kind of drums, this is the kind of guitar, this is the kind of whatever I want. But it's the exact same thing, like you said, for mix engineers too. Because when you send something to a mix engineer, you know, they're the ones controlling reverbs and delays. They're controlling the space in which your final song is going to reside within, right? They're the ones that determine whether it's a really bright, shiny kind of recording or whether it's really dark, right? So like, just kind of an example of that. Think about Johnny Cash's the last album before he died, right? There's the song "Hurt" that like everybody knows, the Nine Inch Nails cover. I've heard that song with its original mix, and like everybody else has, and it's wonderful. It fits so well, and you don't realize how dark that mix is until you take it and you take that very mix and just, you know, bring up all the highs, bring up the shimmer that you're not used to, and you're like, whoa. Well, now it's kind of hi-fi. You know, it's really bright now, but it's not the right thing for the song. And as a mix engineer, they're the ones making that determination. They make it kind of dark because it's kind of it's a dark piece, right? And so it fits the song. And so give whoever you're working with those reference tracks, like you mentioned, you know, they got to know whether it's supposed to be tight funk or whether it's, you know, Billie Eilish with reverb that's going to go everywhere on, you know, a particular bridge, you know.
Right.
So
have like 2 or 3 in mind for like, especially if you want to break it down instrument wise, that's a good way to do it.
Yeah.
If you have a vocalist that you like, definitely do that. That's a big thing. Like making sure your vocal tonality and what you want out of your song, a lot of it comes from your vocal sound. So making sure that you have plenty of references for that is always a good idea.
And the other thing, you know, with that too, is make sure that whenever you send those reference tracks, you write out 1, 2, 3 sentences of what about that song you're referencing. Yeah. Because, you know, it doesn't have to be a reference in your genre if there's a specific thing in it that you really like. Because you can, I mean, as you make music, you might be crossing genres or crossing fields. And so, you know, you might really like the drums in a country song and you're like, hey, I want my drums to sound like this. But your song is not country. You don't want the rest of the song to sound like that, but you want the drum feel from this. But then you want the guitars for shoegaze or something like that, right? And so you got to find, you know, you give those references, but you say, hey, ignore everything else in this song. Just listen to the guitars. Yeah. I want the guitars to sound this way, but nothing else.
It's like a little playlist.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if like, it's a little exercise for you. Patrick came to you and it's like, I recorded a song. It's called My Left Toe. And I want it to sound like Ariana Grande. Okay. What are some signatures of Ariana Grande that you would put into that mix so that it sounded, so that Patrick's left toe?
We were listening to Ariana Grande on the way
We
here.
actually were. Yeah.
We listened to like 3 or 4 songs. Oh. We listened to No Tears Left to Cry. He goes, is this Doja Cat? I was like,
well,
what?
Okay. Okay. To be fair, I don't listen to much Ariana.
We listened to Baby I from her first album. And then we listened to Love Me Harder with The Weeknd.
Yep.
So, again, I don't listen to a ton of Ariana Grande. So
okay, maybe that's a bad example.
But I mean, there are some things that you can take, you know, from that in the sense of the genre that she lives within. And the first, the 2 things that come to mind to me are, 1, your kick and snare are going to be your bread and butter. You got to make the kick and the snare, or whatever the snare sound is, if it's claps, if it snaps, whatever the song is, right? Whatever's filling that space. Make those, the kick and that snare, make them front and center, you know, just push them out there, because that's going to be the groove. That's the thing everybody's going to bob their head to. Same thing with the bass, right? Make sure the bass is nice and solid. That's more difficult than you think it is, especially if you're working in a small room. Yeah. The third thing mixing wise is the vocals, because pretty much every main pop song in the last 10 to 15 years follows the same kind of structure as far as like how the song is meant to be presented, and that's kick, snare, bass, and vocals. Everything else is kind of your ear candy. Everything else is kind of the stuff that's like, oh, this is really cool, I like this. It's not near as important. If those 3 elements aren't there, the song's not there for pop. Compress the vocals. Be careful with how you compress them, but compress them. Because if you have an uncompressed vocal on a pop song, it's not going to feel like pop. Yeah, it's just not. It might, you know, you can do that in other genres like folk. If you're doing folk or bluegrass, you don't want it to sound compressed.
Right.
But on pop, you're looking for those artifacts. It's actual distortion. It's not in the original performance. That's not part of her, but it's part of her sound, right? Or any pop artist. That is the artifacts that are brought in, the distortions that are brought in. So,
Right.
lean into it.
So the reason I did that exercise is one, just to test you. And then two, also, if you think you could mix by yourself, cool. Like that's super cool. Like, and I'm sure that it'll sound the way that you think it should sound, but there may be some things, if you're honest with yourself, that Dale just said that you weren't thinking of, know? And that's why it's good to get a different set of ears on your music besides your own, because it gives another perspective into your music that you may not have thought about. If you are mixing on your own, though, there are plenty of resources for you that you can find and do that. Just take your time, be meticulous, don't rush it. I think do you have any tips for people that are just mixing on their own?
If you're mixing on your own, there's 4 things I can say. They're just really quick tips. First, even if you are mixing, take it to somebody else and have them listen, right? Get that second opinion. Ask your friend, hey, would you mind listening to this and telling me what you think? Because you're going to get ear blind to things. You're going to get ear fatigue, and you're going to be like, all of a sudden that one resonance that is like killer, you're completely like oblivious to because you've become used to it. Second, check in different places. Listen on your phone. Those speakers are probably terrible. Listen there. It's going to humble your mix real quick. Take it to, play
car
it off.
Speakers,
play it in your car,
living room,
your living room, your TV, your headphones, whatever. Play it in different places, because places that you're familiar with, right? That you listen to other kinds of music in, and that will all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow, that's totally different than what I expected.
Different frequencies, you're going to hear better.
Yeah.
When you're playing on your phone, you can hear a little bit more high stuff.
Exactly.
And when you're playing on your car speakers, it tends to be a little bit more spatial because it's your car. So there's plenty of mediums to do that. But you have 2 more.
Third, take breaks. This is what I'm horrible at. I tend to get in there and mix. And then I'm like, oh man, this sounds great. I like how this sounds. And then I'll print it, and then I'll send it to whoever I'm doing stuff with. I'm like, wow, this sounds great. And then I'll go listen to it the next day or get feedback back. And it's like, yeah, this isn't it. Because you spent so long mixing on it that you've become used to what you're hearing, and your ears are naturally going to adjust to that and think, hey, this sounds good. When maybe it doesn't. Take breaks. Let your ears have rest. That will be a huge, huge help. And fourth, know what you're mixing on, right? This one is more of a technical thing, but it's super important. You want to have as accurate of recreation of what you're listening to as possible. So get a good pair of headphones if you're going to mix on headphones. Speakers are better. Speakers are more expensive. Speakers are better.
Would you recommend people mix through headphones?
If you have to, and if you have a terrible room,
you keep the volume down. I think just keep the volume down. I think a lot of people, when they mix through headphones, they crank it. And so
you don't
that's a good way to get ear blind too.
It is. You don't want to listen to music too loud, even when you're working on it, because you're going to also cause damage to your ears that will not ever come back. You do have to either get a really good pair of headphones, or if you have the opportunity and have a room that's decent enough size, get speakers. Speakers are going to have a more accurate response. If you can make a good mix on speakers, it'll translate better to headphones than if you make a good mix on headphones, translating to speakers.
Right.
And a lot of that has to do with crossovers. If you're listening on speakers, what comes out of that right speaker doesn't just go to your right ear, right? You're going to hear it more in your right ear, but you're also going to hear it some in your left ear because it's actually in physical space. Same way with the left going to the right. But if you're in headphones, you're completely isolated. The stuff that's in your right ear is not going to make it to your left ear. You're never going to hear that. So you're never going to hear that crossover between them. And because of that, your mixes in headphones are actually going to be narrower than your mixes on speakers by quite a bit. So like if you later pull it up on speakers, it's not going to sound like you're using the whole stereo field. It's going to sound like it's a lot more mono. And that's not always a good thing, especially you want to use all the real estate you got.
Oh yeah.
So
100%. Well, I think we've provided a good map, like a great roadmap for artists who are to that stage. And if you have any questions, definitely email us at successfullyunsigned@gmail.com or visit our
Production at su-podcast.com.
Wow, neither of y'all know the email, do you?
production at SU.
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 Is this window open?
Actually,
I want to jump
if
out of
you want to pay Dale $5,000 per song,
hire Dale.
and we'll get a cut of it, then do it.
Yeah,
Reach
Yeah.
out.
definitely hire Dale. He's been working hard in this graduate program. He's learned a lot. He's a very knowledgeable dude, and he will take care of you. So get in touch with him and see what happens. But we're gonna take one more break, and we're gonna come back with our last segment, which is gonna be Khalid.
Khalid Artist Spotlight.
Thank you for watching this clip of Successfully Unsigned. If you want to see more content like this in the future, please hit that like and subscribe. Also, don't forget to find us on social media platforms at successfully_unsigned or on our website at su-podcast.com.
Okay, so we haven't done an artist spotlight in a hot minute.
Yeah.
We've done Miley and Olivia. This time it was Dale's pick. So we did Khalid because he's really been into Khalid lately.
I like Khalid. Khalid's cool, man.
So I forgot I have some stuff on my phone even. Okay, so I got a whole page of notes. Just gonna kind of go through his career, and I didn't realize he was like super young when he started out. So his name is Khalid Donald Robinson, and he was born February 11th, 1998. So he's only a little bit older than me.
Stalker.
And he was
98?
Yeah.
He is younger than I thought.
Yeah.
Wow. All right.
He was a
Way to go,
military
man.
brat, so he was just kind of like all over the place. But his senior year, he moved to El Paso, Texas, which is actually really important. So in high school, he started singing and doing musical theater. Theater kid, woo! Shout out to my theater kids. Actually, what I was gonna say about El Paso, this is his quote. I didn't feel like I had a home until I moved to El Paso. The love and friendships I made were influential. El Paso is where I started. I don't feel like I'd be making the music I'm making now if I hadn't gone there. Everyone showed a lot of support at my high school. That's what crafted my interest in recording. I always wanted to do music, record, but I never had the confidence to do it. So I just find that really interesting because like he didn't move there until literally his last year of high school.
Yeah.
And then like his career launched. And so it's kind of like, whoa, like he really loves El Paso for only living there his last year. But in 2016, he starts writing some songs and he posted a song to SoundCloud and he's like, I got to get this out before prom. Not exactly sure why, had to be before prom, but he did. And then in July of 2016 is when he released his single Location. And I think that was the one that he posted on SoundCloud and it was like making huge numbers, especially for SoundCloud.
SoundCloud is just amazing. Like in the early days
I
of
love
SoundCloud, we're
Yeah.
so.
I was a SoundCloud. Yeah, I loved it.
well before there was like all this subscription nonsense.
Yeah.
Like you could just go on SoundCloud and it would just be for indie artists to just post their.
Yeah.
And it could be like the ugliest track, but like and not mixed or anything. I used to always post my tracks like fresh off the press from that. Just
Remember like the whole
not
SoundCloud rapper era?
oh
yeah.
my gosh,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It was the time, man.
You should take advantage of that Buttercookie. Buttercookie on the track.
I butter cookie on the track.
Oh, no.
you
Sounds
go.
like a YouTube tag.
We the best cookie. You know, okay.
But it could
I
be on the
used to
track.
listen to Heather's the Musical on SoundCloud because you couldn't listen. You couldn't
Oh
stream
yeah,
it
they have like
anywhere.
random
Yeah,
musicals
it was like,
on there. Shrek
well-
the musical's on there too.
Shrek the Musical. But yeah, Heather's was like this off-Broadway show and you like couldn't access it anywhere, but it's
Yeah.
like famous. Anyway, so literally even Kylie Jenner posted it on her story, like the song, and he was like, oh my goodness, Kylie Jenner just posted my story. He's getting huge. So eventually I guess he releases the song for like official streaming. Reaches number 2, or no, maybe he didn't. I guess he just released it on SoundCloud and it reached number 2 on the Billboard Twitter Emerging Artists chart. He started getting featured in huge magazines, BuzzFeed, Rolling Stone, stuff like that. Started charting other genres. And then he started getting like some features in 2017. Brass Tracks, your fave.
Yeah.
Logic, others that I did not write down. So then in 2017, he started touring. I have a note here. This is from the vice president of RCA, which is who he signed to. He had already built his own community around himself. We can see that there's no reason to delay in putting out music, especially in 2017. He's a millennial, sort of. He's 18 years old. Kids his age don't need outside validation to love an artist. They've bought in. He makes music very quickly, and we had enough music to go ahead and make a full-length project. I felt it was important for him to take advantage of what he was writing about, which was the high school experience. Being young, disillusioned, and trying to find love. In reality, the reason RCA put out his album so quickly was him. He's just that good. Why would we wait? Period. And so that kind of gets into... Oh, well, actually, first, he toured in January and February of 2017 and sold out every single show.
Wow.
Including a 1,500 capacity venue. And then right after that is when he released Young, Dumb, and Broke, March 3rd, 2017, his first album. And that quote that I just read, that was what he was referring to. He's like, he's made really great music. He already has all these projects. We just need to release it.
Young, Dumb, and Broke is not his first album.
What's his first
Free.
album?
American Teen.
American Teen.
Young, Dumb, and Broke is on it, but American Teen's the album.
Oh, I just said right after he releases Young, Dumb, and Broke.
Okay,
my bad.
Yeah, that was one of the singles on the album.
Okay.
But American Teen is the name of the album.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So he released the album sometime in 2017.
Yeah.
But
I think it was
he wrote
March.
all the songs, he wrote all the concepts, everything. And I do remember this album coming out, sort of. My friend showed me 18, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. That's pretty much the only song that I knew. But I mean, at that time, like, I was 18, and so it was really cool. It was like, oh, like, yeah, I can sort of relate. I mean, he probably was a lot cooler than I was at 18. But do you guys remember when this dropped?
I remember when it dropped. I didn't listen to it. I didn't listen to a lot of kind of pop or R&B or anything like that at that point in time. I was still heavy into like the just straight up like rock and like the Chevelle kind of stuff.
I know for me it was like a sound that I remember hearing it and going like, this is refreshing. Like, because I feel like before, like, we had kind of gone into a little stint of music, like a little, I don't want to say, like a little hole to where music wasn't as good to me.
I agree.
For a while.
Yeah.
I agree.
And then he was like part of that come up of like, okay, we're kind of coming back to doing some bangers again. But yeah, I think
It's such a clean sounding album.
yeah.
Yeah,
Whereas
you're
everything
like really
around
into this album right now.
Oh, dude, I love this album.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because it's texturally, it's nothing like new. It's nothing like, wow, I've never heard this sound before. But like as individual instruments is concerned, but the way they collected all of those instruments together created a new sound. It's like, oh, well, I'm familiar with this. I'm familiar with this. I'm familiar with this. And they just kind of work together. But it's just such a clean, simplistic approach. You know, this is an album that, in my opinion, is very much not overproduced. Whereas maybe that was a little bit of like the rub in some of that era. It was like, you know, a lot of the tracks were just like, this is just like
In your face.
everything is here.
Yeah.
There's no room. There's no breath. It's just, floor to the
air.
floor. There's no air. And then this album comes in, and it's the opposite. You know, it's these clean sounds. There's not a ton of distortion, and when it is, it's very like intentional.
Yeah.
And there's just like room and space to breathe, and for room and space for delays and for echoes to just kind of live. And you're just like, oh, this just kind of expands forever.
Yeah. So it's really cool that RCA kind of like signed him on and just kind of let him do his thing. Be like, okay, you have these projects, you have these ideas and songs. Great, let's release them, instead of being like, okay, yeah, that was cool, but this is what you're gonna do.
Yeah.
So it's really cool that they did that. And this album received 5 Grammy nominations.
Really?
I mean, 18-year-old getting 5 Grammy nominations is crazy. Then he won a VMA for the Best New Artist, and he made his TV debut on Jimmy Fallon all in that year. And then eventually he had a song called The Ways that was featured in Black Panther. Had
Forgot about that.
more huge collabs with like Lorde and Shawn Mendes, Billie Eilish. That one was really big. Lovely.
John Mayer.
John Mayer.
Did
I
he
didn't know
collab
that.
with Taylor?
I don't think so. I don't know.
Interesting.
Hey, we were just featured on Swift Artists. We got to be nice. We got to be nice.
Probably swiftly removed.
So then eventually October 2018 releases, and he releases his October 2018 releases. Yeah.
Nice. Well done.
No, in October of 2018, he releases his Sun City EP, makes number 8 on Billboard 200. And then April 5th, 2019, when I wrote this, it was exactly 5 years ago. He released his second album, Free Spirit, and along with that, a 45-minute short film. Oh, have you seen the short film?
I haven't seen the short film.
Okay,
just
but you love the album?
I like the album.
Okay,
Yeah.
I have never listened to any of the songs really. Like I honestly really only know like Lovely and 18. But I wanted to watch the movie, but then I saw it was 45 minutes. I was like, I don't have time for this. But I watched the trailer and it looks kind of like you're just kind of like typical adventure. I can't quite tell if it's like a maybe not necessarily a documentary, but almost like a kind of how he came to this album, or if it's like partially documentary, or if it is like he made this into a story. But I would be interested to see what is, if you have seen the movie Free Spirit that goes along with Khalid's second album, let us know in the comments what it's about and if we should give it a watch. Probably won't. But
We'll just listen to the Taylor Swift song 4 times and that'll be 40 minutes.
there you go.
There you
That's all
go.
I'm saying. This was his first #1 album on Billboard. And then in April 20th of, I'm guessing 2018 or 2019, it made history by becoming the first, or he made history by becoming the first and only artist to occupy the entire top 5 of Billboard R&B songs chart.
Wow. I did not realize that.
Yeah, neither did I.
Man. And that's all for his second album?
I believe so, yes.
Mm.
So then in 2021, he released his first mixtape, Scenic Drive.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a song called Silver Platter
Good
on
one.
there. And it was featured on the Barbie soundtrack.
Still have not seen that movie.
So good.
I've wanted to watch it. I
It's
just
a great
haven't seen it.
soundtrack too. We should have
I've heard the
watched it
soundtrack.
last night. I would watch it last night. That movie still makes me cry. Anyway, speaking of Billie Eilish, woo, that song. Anyway, yeah, I do remember that song being on the album. So I've listened to that song as well, but I did kind of forget about it. And then at some point in 2021, he did announce his third album, Everything Is Changing. Like, I think he announced that album and then he's like, but I'm gonna put this mixtape out first for y'all to like wait on it. And then we still don't got the album. So Khalid, where is it? Where's the album? Give it to us. So really that's all I have. Like, I was like, okay, what else is there? Like, I'm not gonna lie, I looked up Khalid controversy.
Oh, come on, man.
Goodness.
You know?
No, there's some really cool stuff though. Now I haven't admittedly I have been stuck on his first album and haven't moved past that. I haven't listened to really any of the other stuff yet. But the first one I heard was Coaster, which is I immediately fell in love with that song. Like the first time I heard it, I'm like, I've never heard this. This is amazing. And it's probably his most simple song, at least on the first album. I mean, it's straight up just him and a piano. And I think there's a light synth that comes in every once in a while. And there's like some snaps. And that's like the entire song. So simple, but so good.
Yeah, he's got this thing I like about it. Like one of my favorite songs on that Free Spirit album is Better. Heard that one.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, it's
not with your singing that. I don't
Yeah.
recognize it, but
yeah, but he I think his vocals, like this whole like
yeah.
I don't know how to describe it. He's got like a very calm sort of like just got out of bed in the morning, sort of like raspiness to him. And with the music, it's sort of like you don't usually hear that type of music with singing. It's usually with like rap. Like you'll hear like chill rap vibes with that.
Yeah.
Or like R&B, but you don't hear his style. Like it's very unique to him, and that's what I like about it. And it like is like finding a style that's unique to that person, but also speaks to everyone is so difficult to do. And I think that's what makes him so universally likable.
And musically, even though so many of his textures are so clean, the way that the instrumentation is arranged at times, it also touches into like the lo-fi genres as well.
I was literally about to say that, yeah.
But it's a weird dichotomy of like, yes, it's clean, but yes, it's lo-fi. And like, again, Coaster is that way.
Yeah.
Like I think about the piano, it's not a very like pristine piano. It's not like a classical piano that's like super like, oh, you hear every note crystal clear. No, it's
tremolo type.
It's very like
wobbly, maybe.
I don't think it's not wobbly. It's just it's grainy.
Yeah,
it's very grainy.
Like tape sound?
Yeah, it's kind of like it's kind of like it's you know it's been low passed, right? They filtered out a lot of that high end energy that's just that would have added the shimmer. It's just so textured and so cool.
On Scenic Drive, it's like that.
Is
like
it
one of the first? I want to say it may be like a polysynth or something, but it's so like tape sounding and saturated
saturation
to the point where it's like that stuff is like really pleasing to listen to me for some reason.
Oh,
Like
nice.
If you compress it the right way, I feel like then the saturation sounds so nice.
Well, it gives a feel of nostalgia.
Yes,
and he feeds on nostalgia while also pushing for like this teenage experience thing, which is really weird to like think about those two fitting together. I didn't realize he was that young because like every picture I see of him, he's got like this big old beard. And so I just assumed he was like a lot older than high school when he put out his first album. That shocked me.
His chord changes too. If you pay attention to some of his chords, they're very like suspended chords, open chords. Like these chords kind of give the I'm terrible at describing like what music feels like, but it's like suspended chords they do that. They leave you suspended out there. And it's kind of like you're floating when you hear a suspended chord until you get that resolution. Go ahead.
I was going to say, to me, it almost feels like some of the chord progressions were created on guitar, but then transposed to piano.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%. And that's like, I feel like, is his main instrument guitar?
No, it's mostly like pianos and synths.
Is it piano and synth? Okay.
I mean, there are times though, and I do like this. The first album, he does this twice on the first album, where at the end of the song, it kind of, the song basically decomposes into like people just sitting around like playing and like, you know, they're just kind of sing-songy like around a campfire almost. I think the song American Teen is that way.
Yeah. Yeah, the production, man, is just the production value is great.
Oh man.
And it's like that's what you want to make your tracks. Like you want it to be a production. And a lot of people expect when they see someone live for it to be like, oh, it's got to sound just like the track. Like I don't think it does. Like I think a live version should be just that. It's a live version that is going to sound so much different. You shouldn't expect it to sound like I only say that to say there have been tracks I've done where I've been held back by thinking, how am I going to play this live if I added this in there? It's like cool little synth line. I won't be able to play that live. But then you think about it, it's like, no, this track is its own thing. It's like it's a production and it can have that high production value. And I think his songs do such a good job of like collaging all the different soundscapes together, which is I think what most people like about it. It's like you're at a party and you hear this song and you're like, oh, this is kind of chill, you know?
Yeah.
It's just good music to chill to.
I love it.
I think that's what he kind of.
He also just seems like such a nice guy. Like,
no controversy.
I know, no, literally, all I could find was like these two sketchy websites. And he collabed with someone named Sabrina Claudio, who I guess turned out to have like a secret, super racist Twitter account.
Oh gosh.
But he had like the release had already come out, and then people were like, "Khalid, are you gonna say anything about this?" I don't know if he ever did or not, but it's, I mean, either way, like that doesn't involve him.
Yeah.
But
You were like,
yeah,
his old Twitter. He's like, what did he say? Any like thing on Twitter that's bad?
literally, I
Does
was
he have a
like
burner?
trying to find anything, and I couldn't find anything just except those two sketchy websites. So I'm like, who even knows like if that's all true?
Yeah.
But he's just like, even in his little movie trailer, like right before it, he was like, hey guys, like my album just came out, and he just like looked like such a happy dude.
Nice too.
and-
Well, I mean, I'd be happy
Really
too
nice.
if I got Grammy nominations at 18. So
True.
congrats, Khalid. Congrats.
True.
So I have a question for the two of y'all. In his, again, going back to his first album, since that's the one that I'm most familiar with, he has 2 singles on the album. Well, his first single was Location. You mentioned that one came out the year before. Then he has the single Young, Dumb, and Broke that came out, I believe, with the album. One thing that's interesting that the name, the title track of the album, American Teen, is not one of the singles. I find that interesting. But he actually did have a 3rd single, Saved. However, it wasn't named a single until October when the album came out in March. So what are your thoughts on having a song named a single, or what does that look like when it's already been out on the album? Like admittedly, that's something I don't really understand the purpose of, or why or how that comes to be.
I don't know. I this is something that's weirdly come up so recently. I saw a video on Instagram talking about like, you know, if you're going to release an album, this isn't exactly what you're saying, but like he was basically like, release a song, wait, like promote the heck out of it for 6 weeks, then release another song, promote the heck out of it, and do that for like, if you have a 10 song album, do that for at least 4 to 5 songs.
Yeah.
I just listened to Pop Punk Promo with Sydney. Shout out Pop Punk Promo. Amazing podcast. Please go listen to it. Atlanta from Hexproof has been featured on it. LOL It's Leah has been featured on it. Some other future guests / Nashville artists have been featured on it. But she talked to this artist named Bronny in the UK who has been doing this since about 2016 and just released her first album, Jaded. And in it, Sydney was like, it's really interesting because I think like 9 out of 13 songs have been singles. Now, to be fair, some of them were singles back in like 2021, but she's like, honestly, what it is that I wanted to make an album, and there were some songs I wanted to save for the album, but at the same time, like I know when it comes to an album, not everyone's going to listen to the full album.
Yeah.
Not everyone's going to completely pay attention to that except for your hardcore fans. And so she's like, I wanted to make these songs special, give them their own special time. And then, okay, sure, this was a single back in 2021, but now I'm going to re-release it in 2024.
Yeah.
And that way I know that all of my songs have some sort of love on them.
Yeah.
And so with that, I mean, I don't think that's a terrible idea because it's like, oh, hey, like this song is really important to me. And maybe I didn't release it as a single, but you know what? I regret it. I'm going to release it as a single now, even though my album's already out.
That's fair.
Just go for it.
That's
like
fair.
If you really want a song to get some love, then I think that's the best way. Cause a lot of people aren't going to listen to your full album.
Yeah. And I think it's the same concept you had talked about a video. Like you could make several different types of, one video could give you like 6 different pieces of content. I feel like with songs, like you release it as a album, that particular song may get swept under the rug. And I don't think it's uncommon to want to release that song and kind of re-divert attention because a lot of people,
I agree.
It's not that they don't like it. It's maybe just because it didn't get the attention that it deserved the first time around.
Yeah.
Especially with TikTok, you think how many songs have come back around.
Oh, yeah.
I was just thinking of Melanie Martinez when you said the video thing. She released a music video for every single song in her first album. So like after 2 or 3 years, she still had music videos coming out for them because they were these huge productions. And she's like, I just needed to wait to get the money for them. And then her second album, she waited and like made a full movie for it. But either way, like she was bringing attention to it. And then even in 2020, her song Playdate, which was on her deluxe, the deluxe version of her first album, so doesn't have a music video, goes viral on TikTok. And you think how many other songs that have happened to where it wasn't necessarily a single, but now this random song from this album from, 5+ years ago or however long is now going all over the place. And now everyone wants to listen to it. And it is, making charts, even though it's way older.
Yeah, that's some good points.
So I say do it. Like if you have an album that you're releasing and you pick out however many songs, and who cares if it's like 3/4 of the album, do it. Who's stopping you? Especially if you're a DIY artist and you're not signed. Who cares?
Right.
And with that in mind, like, I don't know, as a smaller artist, I would almost advise don't do an album, do all singles.
Yes.
Because
that's
gives
another
you,
thing they say.
I've heard that a lot.
Following to release an album.
Because what's the purpose at this point in time? What is the purpose of an album? It's to create a kind of an elongated experience, right? But if people don't know you or don't know that they might want to share a committed amount of time for that experience, they're not going to listen to it.
Yeah.
But they might listen to a 3.5 minute song, once every 6 weeks.
Right.
Right. Or if you're good and you make a great song, they'll add it to the playlist and whatever and listen to it more than once, hopefully. But yeah, that gives you constantly new things to promote, and it makes you seem more active.
Yep.
Right. It makes
Very
you seem like,
so.
hey, you're actually out there, you're pushing,
Very
you're doing
much so.
things. If you're doing the programmed route, or even if literally all you're doing is releasing acoustic versions, you can pop those out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
If you're willing to.
Yeah.
You don't have to go into a studio and do everything for every release. That's amazing if you can, but that gets expensive. It's expensive to go into studios and do all that. If your sound requires that, then maybe find a way to do that and find a way to track, 8-9 songs in a day, right? Hire in the musicians and just get it over with. Don't do it. Don't spread it out if you can help it. Book a triple session and just get the thing over with. But then you have 8-9 songs, and that's times that by the 6 weeks. You have a lot of content then.
Yeah, and going back to Bronny, like I said, she's based out of the UK, and so she was like, this album has been 10 years in the making. I wrote the first song in 2014, and it wasn't until she's selling out shows over there now. Like she is headlining a ton of shows. She's on tour, like all this kind of stuff. Like she has a following, and so she just now released her first album 10 years later because she's like, I don't want to release an album when there's not people listening yet.
Yeah.
And so definitely build up that fan base and then kind of decide, okay, it's time.
And the other thing that does for you is if you're promoting things, it gives you something different to promote for. And so it doesn't look like you're promoting for the exact same thing for 12 weeks or 18 weeks, right? It gives you more things to play off of in your promotion process. Even though you promoting for one song is probably going to have some crossover traffic to your other stuff too, right? But it gives you like a new fresh take, right? Yeah. Songs about something different. It's a different vibe. It's a different, whatever, right? You can play off of that to tailor your marketing to be something different each time.
Right.
Lots of good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, now that we've serenaded you with both our outro song and also Miley, we, I think, have given some great tips here tonight. Hope that you get something out of this. As always, go follow us, subscribe to the channel. If you haven't already, what are you doing? Go to the website, su-podcast.com.
Yeah! And you can also follow us everywhere, successfully_unsigned.
Yep.
Or Unsigned Podcast on TikTok.
Yes.
And follow the Butter Cookie as well. and find him and give him your mixing projects, because this is the man right here, Mr. Butter Cookie. Love you guys. See ya. Why did I do it too? Understand?
Y'all can send me butter cookies.